Ethan Hale stepped off the shuttle and onto the gleaming platform of the Xyler 9 medical station. The station floated like a jewel above the swirling clouds of a gas giant, its metal and glass reflecting the faint glimmers of distant stars. Ethan's boots clicked softly against the polished surface as he looked around, eyes wide with both excitement and apprehension. Humanity had never sent a full medical delegation to an alien station before, and Ethan was determined to prove that humans could match, or even surpass, their advanced extraterrestrial counterparts. The station was alive with movement. Aliens of all shapes and sizes hurried past, some on hovering platforms, some walking on multiple limbs, others seemingly floating through the corridors with no visible support at all. Each carried trays of glowing vials, high-tech instruments, or small devices Ethan could not recognize. There was a sense of purpose, a rhythm to the station's activity that spoke of countless years of efficiency and discipline. Ethan straightened his uniform and tried to appear confident, though his heart raced. He was a human among aliens, and he could feel the weight of judgment pressing down on him already. His team had warned him. The Xylarians were meticulous, proud, and not known for their tolerance of mistakes. Yet he also knew that humans had something the aliens often overlooked: intuition, quick thinking, and a sense of humor. As Ethan approached the main entrance to the medical wing, a figure appeared before him. She stood rigid, every movement precise, her eyes sharp and assessing. She was tall, her skin a soft shade of lavender, and her limbs ended in delicate fingers that looked more like instruments than hands. She wore a uniform almost identical in design to the human ones, but perfectly fitted to her alien form. "Welcome, humans," she said, her voice smooth but firm. Her gaze locked onto Ethan, and he felt as if she could see through him, reading every thought before he could even form it. Ethan swallowed, forcing a smile. "Thank you, nurse." They had all noticed Neera's reputation, strict, unyielding, and rumored to have zero tolerance for human errors. Ethan, however, had never been one to back down from a challenge. He gave a small, playful smirk and, without thinking too much, blew her a little kiss. Neera's glare deepened, and for a moment Ethan thought she might vaporize him on the spot. Then, almost imperceptibly, the corner of her mouth twitched. Ethan interpreted it as the tiniest crack in her icy demeanor, though he wasn't sure if it was irritation or something else. Either way, it was enough to make him grin. "Follow me," Neera said, turning on her heel and gliding down a corridor. Ethan and his teammates hurried after her, careful not to trip over any of the strange alien equipment that lined the walls. The corridor was illuminated by soft lights embedded in the ceiling, casting long, elegant shadows. The walls seemed alive, shimmering slightly as if the station itself were breathing. Ethan's mind raced with wonder. Neera led them to a large observation room filled with monitors displaying vital signs, holographic projections of anatomy, and streams of data Ethan could barely interpret. Aliens worked silently at various stations, adjusting settings, injecting treatments, and monitoring patients who floated within transparent pods. The hum of machinery and quiet beeps created a symphony of controlled chaos. "This is the central monitoring hub," Neera explained. "Every patient in the station can be observed from here. Your mission is to assist, learn, and if necessary, provide human expertise. But know this, protocols exist for a reason. Do not improvise." Her glare followed him as if daring him to try anything foolish. The humans were assigned to different sections. Ethan's area was the patient care wing, where he observed alien doctors and nurses administering treatments. Everything was precise, efficient, almost mechanical in its perfection. Yet Ethan noticed small signs of stress. A nurse double-checking the same data multiple times, a doctor hesitating over a procedure, subtle signs that the system, while advanced, was not infallible. Ethan felt a spark of opportunity. Humans thrived in situations that required adaptability, quick thinking, and empathy, qualities that sometimes clashed with strict protocols. He resolved silently to find a way to contribute in a way that would earn Neera's respect, even if it required bending a few rules along the way. Hours passed quickly. Ethan learned the names of alien medicines, observed the functions of alien equipment, and even attempted to communicate with a few patients. Some were nervous around humans, their eyes widening at his appearance. Others seemed curious, studying him with interest. Ethan smiled at each interaction, offering gentle reassurances. During a break, Ethan wandered to the observation deck overlooking the gas giant below. The swirling clouds were mesmerizing, shades of green and blue mixed with white storms. The scale of the planet beneath them was humbling. Ethan felt a surge of pride. Humanity had come a long way from earthbound medics to being part of an interstellar medical station. His reflection in the glass caught his attention. He looked tired, but his eyes shone with excitement. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw Neera standing nearby. She had silently followed him, her posture still rigid, her gaze still piercing. "You shouldn't wander alone," she said, her tone more neutral than usual, though still firm. "This station is dangerous for those unfamiliar with its systems." Admiration is fine, but caution is mandatory. Lights flashed across the station as a red alert lit up on every monitor. Ethan's heart raced. Neera moved immediately, leading her team toward the emergency wing. "Patient in Bay 7, she barked. "All hands move quickly and follow protocols exactly." Alien patients floated in pods, some showing signs of distress. Monitors beeped rapidly, displaying data Ethan had never seen before. One patient in particular drew his attention, a small alien child with a translucent body, trembling and weak. The standard Xylarian procedures were being applied, but the child's vitals remained unstable. Ethan noticed something subtle, a slight color fluctuation in the skin that suggested the treatment was not fully effective. He hesitated for a moment. Neera's eyes were on him, sharp and unyielding, daring him to act. Ethan made a decision. Drawing on his human instincts and training, he adjusted the dosage slightly and repositioned the patient to improve circulation. His movements were precise, careful not to violate the alien protocols. The effect was immediate. The child's vitals began to stabilize, color returning to the translucent skin. The other nurses glanced at Ethan, surprise evident in their expressions. Neera's glare intensified, but it was different now, not just anger. It was scrutiny, calculation, and perhaps even a hint of respect. Ethan allowed himself a small, relieved smile. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "a human touch makes all the difference." For the first time, he felt the possibility that humans were more than visitors here. They could be contributors, problem solvers, even heroes in ways the Xylarians had never considered. By the end of the day, Ethan was exhausted but exhilarated. His teammates congratulated him quietly, their expressions a mix of awe and amusement. Neera gave him one final glare before leaving the wing, and for some reason, Ethan felt sure it was less severe than before. As he settled into the human quarters for the night, Ethan looked out at the stars, thinking about the days ahead. He knew challenges awaited, more complex patients, alien diseases, cultural misunderstandings, but he also knew something else. Humans had a strength the universe often underestimated. Curiosity, ingenuity, empathy, and yes, a little charm. Ethan smiled to himself. Tomorrow he would face Neera again, and who knew? Maybe she would scowl less, and maybe, just maybe, she would see humans in a way no other species had before. And with that thought, Ethan drifted into a deep sleep, dreaming of stars, alien children, and the adventures that awaited him on Xylar 9. The next morning, Ethan woke to the soft hum of the station, the low vibrations through the floor panels reminding him he was floating above a swirling gas giant. The first rays of distant starlight reflected off the curved walls of the quarters, giving the room a faint lavender glow. He stretched and rubbed the sleep from his eyes, excitement mingling with nerves. Today was going to be different. He could feel it. Breakfast in the human quarters was simple, nutrient packs and a few recycled food gels that humans had adapted to their tastes. Ethan ate quickly, scanning the station monitors for updates. Neera had already begun her rounds, and the faint glow of her path across the station corridors indicated she was moving with precision and urgency. Ethan's mind drifted to her glare from yesterday. It had been sharp, unyielding, but he remembered a subtle twitch in her expression when he had blown the playful kiss. He smiled to himself. By the time Ethan reached the central monitoring hub, the station was fully alive. Alien staff moved efficiently, their limbs bending and flexing in ways humans could barely comprehend. Neera was already there, standing straight and observing the activity with laser focus. Ethan took a deep breath, reminding himself to stay professional, but the mischievous part of him couldn't resist. He gave her a small nod and a cheeky grin. She did not respond, and he pretended to be serious, even as his teammates tried not to snicker. Neera assigned the humans to shadow various specialists. Ethan was paired again with her, to his delight and apprehension. The first task was routine patient assessments, but he quickly noticed subtle issues the Xylarians hadn't accounted for. One patient, an adult alien with iridescent scales, was showing signs of stress and uneven healing. Nira began her standard assessment, methodical and precise, but Ethan saw something in the patient's micro-expressions, tension in the tiny movements of its eyes and a faint shivering of its limbs, that suggested discomfort beyond what the monitors reported. He hesitated. He had been told many times not to interfere unless instructed. But Ethan had learned something in med school and from his first day on the station. Sometimes the difference between success and failure was intuition. Quietly, he adjusted the patient's positioning to ease the strain and murmured soft, reassuring words in a human tone. The patient calmed almost immediately. Nira, watching, stiffened. "Why did you do that?" she asked sharply, her tone cutting through the background hum. Ethan smiled. "I just thought it would make the patient more comfortable." The station's peaceful rhythm was suddenly interrupted by a high-pitched alarm. Red lights flashed across the corridors. Ethan's stomach sank as the emergency protocol activated. "Containment breach in Bay 12, Nira announced, moving immediately with her team. Ethan followed, keeping close. The corridor was chaotic now. Hovering platforms rushed patients away, medics moved with precise urgency, and the hum of machinery became more urgent. When they arrived at Bay 12, the sight took Ethan's breath away. A patient pod containing a small alien child had malfunctioned. The child floated slightly out of alignment, its vitals spiking and dipping unpredictably. The monitors blared warnings. Nira's hands moved swiftly, adjusting controls with flawless precision, but the child's condition worsened. Ethan's mind raced. He had seen similar patterns before, subtle signs that a human approach could help. Ignoring the flicker of warning in Nira's glare, he stepped closer and used his human touch and reasoning to stabilize the pod's settings. He adjusted the temperature slightly, added a small, controlled adjustment to the support fluids, and carefully positioned the child. The effect was immediate. The vitals began to stabilize and the alarms quieted. A ripple of astonishment passed through the alien medics, who paused to watch the human work. Nira's glare had sharpened, but beneath it Ethan thought he glimpsed something softer, curiosity. "You are reckless," she said, her voice firm. "Or adaptable," Ethan replied with a grin. Nira made a sound that was almost a sigh, turning to check the next patient. Ethan's teammates exchanged glances, silently impressed. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of emergencies and routine care. Ethan continued to notice subtle details the Zalarians overlooked. Slight changes in a patient's breathing, a faint tremor in a limb, a color shift in the skin. Each time he acted carefully and respectfully, the results were better than expected. Slowly, some of the junior alien medics began to watch him, fascinated by his approach. During a quiet moment, Nira led Ethan to the observation deck overlooking the lower levels of the station. The view was breathtaking. Pods containing patients floated in precise orbits, the glowing corridors stretched in perfect geometry, and far below, the swirling storms of the gas giant reminded Ethan of the fragility of life in such a massive, indifferent universe. "You humans are different," Nira said finally, her tone measured. Ethan smiled, leaning casually against the railing. "Different can be good," he said. "It keeps things interesting." He blew a small, playful kiss in her direction, more out of habit than expectation. Nira's response was a slight twitch of the brow, a barely perceptible reaction that nonetheless gave Ethan a thrill. The quiet was interrupted by the sudden alarm of another patient crisis. This time, several patients were affected simultaneously. It seemed a strange illness was spreading quickly through the wing, one that standard Zalarian protocols could not fully contain. Panic started to creep into the medics' movements. The monitors flashed erratically, showing fluctuating vital signs, and the station's usual rhythm seemed to stumble. Ethan felt a surge of determination. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the opportunity to prove that humans could not only observe but lead, not with sheer technology, but with intuition, creativity, and empathy. "Follow me," he said to Nira, who hesitated but then allowed him to move ahead. His human instincts told him to combine observations, communicate closely with the alien medics, and adapt treatments in real time. It was risky, and Nira's glare bore into him with every move, but Ethan pressed on. Hours passed as Ethan worked alongside Nira, stabilizing patients one by one. His unorthodox methods, slightly altered pod alignments, adjustments to fluid infusions, and carefully timed interactions proved more effective than the rigid protocols. Slowly, the tension among the alien medics eased as they began to see results. Between crises, Ethan found fleeting moments to use humor to lighten the mood. A brief joke, a wink, a playful gesture, small things to remind the staff that courage and compassion were just as important as technology. Neera caught one of these moments, a small human grin accompanied by a teasing gesture, and her lips twitched as if suppressing a smile. Ethan caught it and allowed himself a small, satisfied smirk. By the end of the cycle, the immediate threat had been contained. The patients were stable, and the station's systems were back to their normal rhythm. Ethan slumped against a console, exhausted but exhilarated. Neera approached, silent for a moment, her usual glare softened by something he couldn't quite name. "You humans, you do not follow protocol, yet somehow you succeed," she said finally. "Perhaps there is value in your unpredictability. That's all humans do." As he settled into the quarters later that evening, Ethan reflected on the day. Neera's initial glare had not vanished, but it had shifted. There was now curiosity, respect, and perhaps an acknowledgement of human ingenuity. He thought of the patience, the chaos, the tiny victories, and realized that humans could adapt to any situation, no matter how alien, and still make a difference. He leaned back against the wall, looking out at the stars. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more patience, and likely more glares from Neera, but Ethan felt ready. Humans had arrived at Xylar 9 not just to observe, but to leave a mark. And somewhere in the corner of his mind, he imagined that Neera might be secretly enjoying his little human antics, even if she would never admit it aloud. With that thought, Ethan closed his eyes and let himself rest, the soft hum of the station a lullaby in the midst of the stars. The next day began quietly, or so it seemed. Ethan had barely finished his morning briefing when the first alerts came in. Small but significant spikes in patient vitals had been detected across the station. At first, the alarms were intermittent, easily manageable. But by mid-morning, the red lights of emergency status were flashing continuously, echoing through the corridors. The hum of the station had turned tense, almost anxious. Neera moved immediately, her usual glare sharp and commanding. She directed teams with precision, but even she could not hide the flicker of worry in her violet eyes. Ethan followed closely, his heart racing. He knew this was more than a simple patient issue. Something new had arrived, something unpredictable. The first patient he reached was a young alien floating in a transparent pod. Its skin had turned a sickly shade of green, the glow of its internal organs pulsing irregularly. Monitors flashed warnings, but standard treatments had no effect. Ethan leaned closer, observing tiny inconsistencies in the readings that the Xylarians seemed to overlook. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down. This was no longer a moment for playful gestures or jokes. Lives were at stake. He moved quickly, combining his human intuition with the tools available. He adjusted the pod's temperature and repositioned the patient slightly. He added a small adjustment to the nutrient infusion, careful not to interfere with the station's delicate systems. The effect was almost immediate. The alien's vitals began to stabilize. Ethan exhaled, but there was no time to relax. Neera's sharp gaze was on him, scrutinizing every move. For the first time, Ethan felt that their professional dynamic had changed. She was no longer merely glaring. She was analyzing, learning, and perhaps even beginning to trust his instincts. As he worked, he noticed other patients showing similar symptoms. It was clear that a virus, unlike any seen before, was spreading rapidly. The station's usual protocols, perfected over decades, were failing. Panic was beginning to ripple through some of the junior staff, who had never faced a threat that protocols could not control. Ethan felt a surge of determination. Humans had a reputation for improvisation, creativity, and courage in the face of the unknown. Now was the time to prove it. "Ethan," Neera called, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Report your findings." Now, he introduced a combination of techniques, human-style adjustments to the pods, careful observation of vital signs, and a gentle, reassuring presence with the patients. At first, some of the aliens were skeptical, hesitant to trust a human method. But as one patient after another stabilized under his approach, their skepticism turned to curiosity and then to admiration. Throughout the day, Ethan worked tirelessly. The virus was clever, mutating slightly as it spread, but he adapted in real time, combining intuition with careful analysis. He observed how it reacted to environmental changes, subtle shifts in temperature, and nutrient adjustments. Each small success built momentum, and soon a rhythm emerged, a blend of human adaptability and alien precision. Neera remained close, watching him closely. At first, her gaze was critical, assessing his every move. But as she saw the effectiveness of his methods, the sharpness of her glare softened. She began to intervene only when necessary, allowing Ethan the space to work while ensuring that the station's standards were maintained. During a brief lull, Ethan finally allowed himself a small moment of humor. He leaned against a console, wiping sweat from his brow, and blew a quick, playful kiss toward Nira. She looked at him, eyes narrowing in disbelief, but instead of the usual glare, there was a flicker of something almost like amusement. Ethan smiled, feeling a small victory. Even in the middle of a crisis, humans could find moments of connection and levity. The crisis escalated further when one of the virus's mutations caused an unexpected reaction in a group of adult patients. Their vitals spiked and dropped unpredictably, confounding even the most experienced Zalarian medics. Ethan assessed the situation quickly. He realized that the virus was responding to stress indicators in the patients, something that standard treatments ignored. He explained to Nira his plan, a multi-step approach combining controlled environmental adjustments, precise nutrient modifications, and a calm, reassuring presence. It was risky, and it required coordination between human and alien medics. Nira hesitated for a moment, but then she nodded. "Do it," she said. The next hours were a blur of controlled chaos. Ethan moved from pod to pod, adjusting treatments, calming patients, and coordinating with Nira and the medics. The station's monitors flickered and beeped continuously, but slowly, steadily, the patients began to stabilize. One by one, the crisis ebbed. By late afternoon, the immediate threat had been contained. The virus was still present, but its effects had been mitigated. The station's staff, exhausted but relieved, began to regroup. Ethan slumped against a console, panting, sweat running down his face. Nira stood nearby, her posture relaxed for the first time, her arms folded as she observed him. "You humans," she said quietly, almost to herself, "you find solutions in ways we cannot anticipate. But reckless." For the first time, humans were not merely visitors. They were problem solvers, contributors, and perhaps even leaders in crisis situations. As the station settled into a calmer rhythm, Ethan took a moment to review the events of the day. The virus had tested the limits of the station's protocols, and human ingenuity had filled the gap. He realized that this was only the beginning. The universe was full of unknowns, and humanity's ability to adapt, improvise, and find creative solutions would be their greatest asset. Nira approached him one last time before the end of the shift. She stood silently, observing him with a mixture of scrutiny and acknowledgement. Then she said, "Tomorrow will bring new challenges. Be prepared. And try not to irritate me with your gestures." The station had survived its first major test with the help of human creativity, courage, and empathy. Nira's respect, though unspoken, was a reward in itself. He knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges, perhaps more dangerous situations, but he was ready. Humanity had proven it could stand alongside even the most advanced alien civilizations, not by following rules blindly, but by thinking, observing, and acting with both intelligence and heart. That night, Ethan lay in his quarters, staring at the view of the gas giant below. Its storms churned and roiled, magnificent and unpredictable. He thought about the day, the patients, and the team. Humans were different, yes, but perhaps that difference was exactly what the galaxy needed. Somewhere deep inside, he imagined Nira watching him through the station's sensors, still critical, still commanding, but now with a trace of respect. And maybe, just maybe, she would see the value in a little human humor and charm, even in the middle of the most serious crisis. Ethan smiled as he drifted to sleep, knowing that the next day would bring new challenges. But he also knew that humans were ready. Unpredictable, resilient, and clever, humanity had carved its place among the stars, and he was proud to be part of it. The stars outside the station shimmered in silent applause, a reminder that the universe was vast, full of unknowns, and that humans, with all their flaws and brilliance, were capable of rising to meet anything it threw at them. The morning light on Xylar 9 was faint, filtered through the swirling clouds of the gas giant below. Ethan Hale rubbed his eyes as he prepared for another day on the station, still exhausted from yesterday's crisis. He could feel a mix of anticipation and dread. The virus they had faced yesterday had been brought under control, but Ethan knew the universe rarely gave simple victories. He arrived at the central monitoring hub to find a tense atmosphere. Alien medics were clustered around displays, analyzing patient data. Red warnings flashed intermittently, not as severe as before, but enough to raise concern. The virus had not vanished, it had mutated. The Zalarians had never seen anything like it. It reacted unpredictably to standard treatments, and their usual methods were only partially effective. Nira was already there, her sharp gaze scanning the monitors. Ethan approached, careful not to disturb her concentration. She noticed him immediately. "The virus is evolving," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Yesterday's methods will not be enough. We must act quickly." Humans had one advantage: intuition and the ability to improvise. He quickly reviewed yesterday's adjustments and considered ways to combine them with alien technology. "Ethan," Nira said, her voice sharp, "we need a plan that will stabilize all infected patients simultaneously. The virus is spreading faster than we can isolate it. We combine your advanced treatments with human adaptability. We'll adjust pods individually, monitor vitals in real time, and apply small environmental changes to reduce stress indicators. We can use calming agents and controlled nutrient flows to guide the virus's response. Sometimes risk is necessary to save lives." The first patient pod they approached contained a small alien child, still recovering from yesterday's treatment. Ethan adjusted the pod's temperature slightly and altered the fluid intake to balance the child's weakened metabolism. He monitored the vitals closely, watching for any unexpected reaction. Slowly, the child stabilized further, color returning to its translucent skin. "Good," Nira said quietly, almost approvingly. They moved from pod to pod, applying similar techniques. Each patient required careful attention, slight variations based on individual needs. Ethan noticed patterns, micro shifts in vitals that predicted how the virus would react. He adjusted treatments accordingly, guiding alien medics through each step. Hours passed in a blur of activity. The station's corridors hummed with the energy of coordinated effort. Ethan's human touch combined with Nira's precision proved effective. Patients who had shown signs of rapid deterioration were stabilizing. Even the most skeptical alien medics began to trust his judgment, following his lead as he moved through the wing. During a brief pause, Ethan leaned against a console, catching his breath. Nira stood nearby, her arms folded, observing him. For a moment, the usual tension between them eased. "You have a unique way of thinking," she said. "Humans see connections that we overlook." Nira's eyes narrowed sharply, but there was a subtle twitch in her expression that suggested she was trying not to smile. Ethan smiled to himself, feeling a small victory. The virus, however, was far from defeated. Late in the afternoon, monitors indicated a sudden spike in patient distress. The mutation had evolved again, targeting multiple organ systems simultaneously. The standard pod adjustments were no longer sufficient. Panic threatened to return among the alien medics. Ethan felt a surge of determination. This was the moment for bold action. He gathered Nira and a few senior medics around a central console. "We need a hybrid solution," he said. "We combine your technology, my observations, and some real-time improvisation. We will treat the virus as a dynamic system, not a fixed problem." Alien medics would monitor and adjust pods in real time, guided by Ethan's predictions of the virus's response. "It is unconventional," Nira said. "Effective," Ethan replied firmly. The hybrid treatment began. Ethan coordinated with precision, calling out adjustments, noting subtle changes in vitals, and recalibrating strategies on the fly. Nira moved alongside him, assisting with complex procedures and ensuring no step violated the station's safety limits. The alien medics followed their lead, initially hesitant, then increasingly confident as patients stabilized. Hours passed. The intensity of the crisis kept Ethan fully focused, but even in the tension, his humor persisted. Between critical adjustments, he made small jokes to lighten the mood, and once when Nira scowled at his antics, he blew a playful kiss toward her. This time, she flinched slightly but did not respond verbally. Ethan allowed himself a small smile, knowing that even small gestures could maintain morale in the midst of chaos. By evening, the hybrid approach had succeeded. Patients across the station showed marked improvement. The virus had been contained, and for the first time, the alien medics had witnessed the full potential of human ingenuity combined with advanced technology. Nira stood beside Ethan, her posture less rigid, her gaze thoughtful. "You humans," she said quietly, almost reverently, "you adapt in ways we cannot predict. Your methods, they work." Humans had not only contributed, they had saved lives in a way that alien technology alone could not. The day ended with a quiet acknowledgement from station leadership. A hollow message from the medical director praised Ethan's quick thinking and innovative approach, noting the effectiveness of the hybrid treatment. Alien medics exchanged quiet congratulations, some looking at him with newfound respect. Nira, however, remained her usual reserved self, though Ethan noticed a faint nod as she passed by. Exhausted but exhilarated, Ethan returned to the human quarters. He leaned against the window, staring out at the swirling storms of the gas giant below. The day had been intense, a test of skill, courage, and creativity. Humanity had shown that they were not merely observers, they were contributors, problem solvers, and innovators capable of saving lives even in the most alien circumstances. As he prepared to rest, he thought about Nira. Her glare had softened over the course of the crisis. Respect had replaced some of the initial hostility, and perhaps, he mused, a connection was forming, a professional bond rooted in mutual admiration and shared experience. He allowed himself a small smile and blew a final playful kiss toward her hollow monitor, imagining her scowl transforming into a subtle smirk. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Ethan felt ready. Humans had carved a place for themselves among the stars, not through sheer technology or force, but through ingenuity, adaptability, and the courage to act when others hesitated. The gas giant below continued to churn, magnificent and unpredictable, a perfect reflection of the universe itself. And humanity, unpredictable and clever, had proven it could rise to meet any challenge, even an evolving alien virus threatening lives across the station. Ethan closed his eyes, letting the hum of the station lull him to sleep. He knew that the next day would bring new patients, new challenges, and new opportunities to show that humans were capable, resilient, and indispensable. The morning on Xyler 9 began quietly, almost peacefully, a sharp contrast to the chaos of the previous days. Ethan Hale stretched as he looked out of the observation window. The gas giant below swirled in majestic patterns of green and blue, a reminder of the scale of the universe and how fragile life could be. He could feel the weight of responsibility, but also a sense of pride. Humanity had proven itself on the station, and he had played a crucial role in that success. Ethan dressed quickly and headed toward the central monitoring hub. The alien staff were already there, moving with calm precision. The emergency alerts that had dominated the past days were gone. Patients were stable, and the mutated virus had been fully contained. The station's routines had returned to normal, though everyone knew that they had been changed forever by the recent events. Nira was at her station, scanning the monitors. Her posture was still upright and commanding, but her gaze softened when she noticed Ethan approaching. He gave her a small grin and, in a habit he could not resist, blew a playful kiss in her direction. For the first time, she let a faint smile appear, just at the corner of her mouth, before turning back to her work. The station's leadership convened a meeting to formally acknowledge the human team's contributions. Ethan, along with his teammates, stood at attention as the holographic image of the station director appeared before them. The alien director's voice, usually stern and formal, carried a rare warmth as it praised the human's ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. "You have demonstrated qualities that our protocols alone could not provide," the director said. "Human intuition, creativity, and empathy have saved countless lives. You have proven yourselves indispensable to this station and to interstellar medical collaboration." Humanity, often underestimated by advanced alien civilizations, had shown that they could meet any challenge. Nira, standing beside him, nodded subtly. Her glare had vanished, replaced by an expression of respect and acknowledgement. After the formalities, Ethan returned to the patient care wing. The corridors were alive with activity, but the tension was gone. The alien medics moved with confidence, many of them now applying techniques they had learned from Ethan's human perspective. It was clear that the station had changed, and humans had left a permanent mark. He checked on several patients, offering reassurance and monitoring their recovery. Each patient stabilized and thriving felt like a personal victory. Ethan realized that the trust and respect he had earned from the alien medics, including Nira, were built on more than just skill. They were built on persistence, courage, and a willingness to act when others hesitated. During a brief lull, Nira approached him. "Ethan," she said quietly, her usual sharp tone softened, "your methods, they are unusual but effective. You have earned my respect." Their playful banter, once a source of tension, had evolved into a sign of mutual respect and camaraderie. Later, Ethan joined Nira in the observation deck overlooking the gas giant. The swirling storms below reflected the calm of the station and the chaos of the past days. They watched in silence, a shared moment of quiet after the storm. "The station is stable," Nira said finally. "Thanks to you, humanity, and your team. We would not have managed without your approach." This time she allowed a small laugh to escape before shaking her head, clearly amused. The tension between them had dissolved into trust, respect, and friendly banter. As the day progressed, Ethan continued his rounds, checking on patients and assisting medics. The human approach of observation, adaptation, and empathy had been fully integrated into the station's operations. Alien medics who had once doubted humans now sought their advice, and the collaboration between species was stronger than ever. The station director called Ethan for a private briefing. "Ethan Hale," the holographic image began, "your actions have not only saved lives but changed how we view human contributions. You have proven that your species possesses ingenuity, courage, and resilience that complement our technology. We welcome humans as permanent partners on Xyler 9. They had overcome skepticism, cultural barriers, and dangerous challenges to earn respect. Nira joined him after the briefing, her usual glare replaced with a calm smile. "It seems you have done more than I expected, Ethan," she said. "I had a good teacher," Ethan replied, nodding toward her. "You pushed me to be better." "And your playful gestures." Ethan noticed Nira standing apart for a moment, observing the interactions. He approached her and offered a toast. "To teamwork," he said, raising a glass. "Humans and aliens working together, saving lives, and proving that anything is possible when we respect each other's strengths." As the night progressed, Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The virus crisis had been the ultimate test, and humanity had passed with flying colors. The station's culture had shifted, embracing human creativity alongside Xylarian precision. Trust and respect had been built, not just through skill, but through courage, empathy, and humor. Before retiring for the night, Ethan stood on the observation deck once more, gazing at the gas giant below. Its storms churned endlessly, unpredictable and magnificent, much like the universe itself. Humanity had faced the unknown and risen to the challenge. The lessons of these days would shape future interactions, collaborations, and adventures across the stars. Nira joined him silently, standing side by side. Ethan glanced at her. "We make a good team," he said quietly. "Yes," she replied, her voice calm and measured, "we do." The station was quiet, stable, and alive with the hum of activity. Patients rested safely, alien medics worked with renewed confidence, and humanity had earned a place among the stars. Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment, not just for what he had done, but for what humans represented. Adaptability, courage, empathy, and the ability to thrive even in the most alien circumstances. As he finally lay down to rest, Ethan reflected on the journey. From the first glares of Nira to the chaotic days of the virus, humans had proven that their creativity and spirit could save lives, win respect, and change perspectives. The galaxy had taken notice, and humanity's place among the stars was no longer in doubt. The stars outside shimmered, a silent witness to the accomplishments of humans and aliens working together. Ethan closed his eyes, dreaming not just of challenges to come, but of the bonds forged, the lessons learned, and the adventures that awaited. He knew that wherever the universe led, humans were ready, resilient, clever, and capable of rising to meet any challenge. Nira watched him for a moment, standing quietly at the edge of the observation deck. She turned back to the monitors with a sense of calm satisfaction. Humanity had proven itself, and for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine what a future partnership with humans could accomplish. In the quiet of the station, with the hum of life and machinery surrounding them, Xyler 9 had changed forever. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were valued, respected, and recognized for what they truly were: creative, brave, and indispensable allies in the galaxy. Ethan smiled in his sleep, a soft, peaceful smile. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new patience, and new adventures, but he was ready. Humanity had shown its strength, its ingenuity, and its heart. And with that, the universe seemed a little brighter, a little more alive, and a little more ready to embrace the unpredictable brilliance of humans.